the other property. Everybody was signing, they were not gonna pay until closing of the building. Yeah.
So there's copies.
Ian, are we ready? You guys ready to call the meeting to order? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the June workshop meeting of your Board of Trustees. To honor our nation's heroes, and especially to honor the men and women in uniform who serve and protect our community, please rise and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Fitzgerald, may we have the roll call, please?
Certainly, President Gallagher. Trustee Hansen?
Here.
Trustee Timmick?
Here.
Trustee Allen?
Here.
Trustee Rudolph?
Here.
Trustee Sifferman?
Here.
Trustee Tyrrell?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Having read the agenda, does any trustee have an addition or deletion to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to this portion of the meeting where we open it up to the public. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to address the board? Seeing no one, we'll move on to our committee reports. Public Works and Water is first. Trustee Allen.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Update on the 2018 roadway program bid results. There were several people that bid on the project. The low bid, apologize for one second. Came from Davis Concrete Construction Company for $1,686,000 and some change. Staff has worked with them before, as has our village engineer, J.J. Bennis and Company, and they are recommending that we proceed with them for the 2018 roadway program. We just discussed it this evening at our committee level. We went through a little bit of additional work on that because this is a little bit bigger scope than we originally planned. It includes a couple hundred extra feet on Johnson to kind of tie in with the Foxford Development Program. So we should point out that the $1,686,000 and some change is the gross number. There's also going to be some discussions with Foxford about a reimbursement for the portion that would be due to their new development. So the net's a little bit less than that. We went over also the design engineering for this project as well too. As you may recall, staff did a nice job presenting some of the improvements we want to do on Lawn Avenue near the post office and the hardware store. The engineering for that is in this budget, as well as the concrete and masonry type work. However, what's not in there is what we would call the beautification, the green stuff, benches, and things like that. So that's to be determined. Both of these are over the budgeted amounts, so there will be a request down the road for a finance amendment. And we discussed it at committee and decided to recommend that we go forward with it in 2 weeks to vote on it, to sort of keep with the roadway plan to get that completed this year. Were there any questions about that?
I see that we went over budget by about 5%, or these bids came in higher than what were estimated. Is that because of the larger scope of the project, Jeff?
No, to be honest with you, that's a fairly typical bid. You're going to get some that are higher and some that are lower. In this particular case, they were all on the high side. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, we like to hit somewhere in the middle, but you know, if you're within 10%, that's a pretty good bid of the engineer's estimate, assuming the estimate is reasonable. And so it gives a validation to the estimate more than it does the prices that the contractors. We just felt we had a good showing of price. We're talking about $40,000 or so between the next two bidders, which would have been the second and third bidders. There was only about a $5,000 spread on $1.6 million. That means the plans were good, and you don't have that large complete swing on the low end of the bid. So it's more just a reflection of the marketplace.
Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of other, just a couple of just real quick updates. I know we've talked about having a joint finance meeting sometime this summer, so that's still in the works. Director Turi and Director Supert are trying to coordinate a time, maybe July, August, that we would go over that. Director Supert has already started on a little bit on the infrastructure plan. That was our #1 priority coming out of the strategic planning. So it's really in the very beginning stages, but I just wanted to give you an update that he's already been pulling that together in some stages. So with that, I'll conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Allen. Moving on to Properties and Recreation, Trustee Hansen.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Just a quick report on the Tower Trot that was held on May 26th. 1,250 runners participated in the Tower Trot, and almost $30,000 was raised for Healing Hearts for Ashley, which is the charity that the Tower Trot was supporting this year and I believe next year. And that honors a former teacher from McClure who died tragically, and we are trying to support research for the disease that she died from. Rita Lagaikis from the Recreation Department, as well as the Police, Fire, and Public Works Departments, and all the volunteers did a great job with the Tower Trot. It was a big success, beautiful day. I don't know who was in charge of that, but it was a beautiful day. And everything went well. And thank you to all who volunteered.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Hansen. Thank you, Director Alden. This is quite an undertaking, Tower Trot, year after year, and it always goes off seamlessly as if there was no effort involved, and we know that's not the case, so thank you. Moving on to Public Health and Safety, Trustee Sifferman.
President Gallagher, colleagues, there are a number of housekeeping issues coming to this body this evening from the Public Health and Safety Committee. Documents supporting these issues can be found in your packets. The first item identifies the need for a resolution authorizing and approving the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Western Springs and the Pleasant View Fire Protection District, Cook County, and DuPage counties for the purchase and maintenance of an outdoor tornado warning siren. The need to revise the IGA comes in the wake of Pleasant View's consolidation of its emergency dispatch into LTAC. The revised IGA draft and proposed resolution prepared by Mike Jarusik awaits our board's approval. The committee recommends this be incorporated into the next omnibus.
We'll do that. Thank you.
The next item addresses the need for an ordinance authorizing the approval and execution of an amended mutual aid agreement and plan for our village participation in the Northern Illinois Police Alarm System, known as NIPES. The village has been a participating agency in this group since 1993. The NIPES board has identified 4 areas requiring updated amendments in these agreements. Chief Buds recommends the approval and execution of the amended draft NIPES agreement prepared by Mike Jarusik that includes the appropriate language identified by NIPES. The committee recommends this item also be placed on the next omnibus agenda.
We'll do that. Thank you.
The next item addresses Chief Kenny's request to declare an extensive list of turnout gear and equipment as surplus for either donation to other less fortunate fire protection departments or to be outright discarded. The committee recommends this request be advanced to the next omnibus agenda for approval. The next item addresses Chief Kenny's request to amend the 2006 International Fire Code, which adds a section authorizing the imposition of a $100 re-inspection fee upon the owner, occupant, operator, or person responsible for the cited violation. The fee would mirror a fee already imposed for re-inspections of buildings. The proposed language was submitted by Fire Marshal Kelly. The committee has approved this matter for advancement to the next omnibus agenda for full board adoption. And finally, Chief Kenny has asked me to announce the presentation of a recognition plaque awarded to the Village of Western Springs by the Illinois Fire Sprinkler Advisory Board. Chief, would you do the honors?
Thank you, Trustee Sifferman. Village Board, I just wanted to recap, back on the 19th of May, the 4 major fire service organizations in the state of Illinois held a recognition, and the recognition was basically for those communities that had operated and had enacted sprinkler codes for single-family residential, and had pretty much followed what were national recommendations dealing with resident safety, and then also dovetailing that to firefighter safety. And this board back in 2015 had the courage to make that law, and has served us extremely well. And I think you've seen in the news, unfortunately, a lot of incidences that are not that far from us that have ended up in some pretty disastrous home fires and loss of life. So on the 19th, and this plaque was presented to Deputy Chief Mayor, but it actually goes to President Gallagher as well as the entire trustees, village manager, Director Scott, who was a big part of when we put this together, in recognition of following the FEMA's America Burning Report Guidelines for the Protection of Citizens and FEMA's Firefighter Life Safety Summit recommendations for the protection of firefighters by adopting and preserving progressive residential fire sprinkler codes, given this 19th day, May 2018. So President Gallagher, I give that to you, and I thank you on behalf of all the members of our fire department as well as all of our residents, for all of you for the support for that particular ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. I remember when we adopted that ordinance, and there was quite a bit of discussion about it because it does add on a fee to the cost of building a house. But if it saves one person in the course of the life of the ordinance, it'll be well worth it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, President Gallagher. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Sifferman. Moving to Finance Committee, Trustee Ludo.
No report this evening. Thank you, President Gallagher.
Thank you. Moving on to General Government Committee, Trustee Timmick.
Thank you, President Gallagher. A number of items to cover this evening. These were all discussed at the General Government Committee meeting we just concluded prior to this meeting. First on the agenda is a status report on the small cell legislation. So this is a topic we had covered in a previous meeting, and it's basically around Western Springs drafting some language and an ordinance that meets the new federal guidelines about what telecom companies are allowed to do in terms of where they can position their equipment. We're working with the village law firm, Attorney Jeruzik, to draft the appropriate language. The update is that we should see that in the July timeframe. So no action this month on this one, just a status update.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one up is the prevailing wage ordinance, and this is pretty much a house cleaning matter. Every year in the June timeframe, we are required to adopt an ordinance that takes into account the new prevailing wages by the various roles within the jobs that the various people working for the village actually fulfill. So right now, the plan here would be is that we would have the draft ordinance to review here in the packet and then put it in the May omnibus. What's changed from previous years is that we can now post those wages on a website as opposed to having to put them in a newspaper posting or classified sort of ad there. So the idea will be is get this in the May omnibus so that we are compliant by the July 15th deadline.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Continuing along, item C, the ComEd efficiency program. This is really pretty much a simple, straightforward sort of initiative here. ComEd is offering the village through their focus of partnering with municipalities to offer a free energy audit. What they'll do is they'll come in through a third party and take a look at our energy systems and provide some recommendations on how we can be more efficient with those systems. There's no charge for the audit. It is definitely free. Any of the work that might be required based on those recommendations, we could then choose to either pursue or not. The reason it's coming before the board is that we would need to draft and approve a resolution because this would require an intergovernment agreement between us and ComEd. So the committee reviewed it. Some of the village staff actually has some experience using this sort of an arrangement, and their recommendation was that this would be worthwhile. So we would make the recommendation to put this on the May omnibus also.
June, we'll do it in June omnibus.
Was that June? Okay. My bad on that one. Okay. Then next up after that would be the NICOR franchise agreement. Here, our current agreement with NICOR has not yet expired, but what the proposal here is that we would work with potentially upwards of I think it's about 30 or so other communities to negotiate in mass, similar to a consortium, to try to leverage the size of that group and gain some more favorable terms with NICOR. There is actually a consortium that exists currently that NICOR had developed a similar agreement with, but they've not ever been willing to extend those more favorable terms to other municipalities. So the idea is we're going to work again with our village attorney and his firm to work and gather other communities and go after really about 8 to 9 key areas of the agreement where we think that we can gain more favorable results for the village. And the good thing about this is if we go in with these other and pool with these other communities, the legal fees to gain these advantages or improvements would be significantly lower because it would be cost sharing across those communities. And President Galler, as you clarified in the meeting, if one of the parties does not pay their fair share, it does not fall back on the other communities to absorb that cost. So we're in for our share, and that's it. And so, again, this was thought to be a definite good strategy here to make some improvements for the village overall. So the committee recommended that we move forward on this one as well.
And Trustee Timick, if I may interrupt, this is just for the villages, the village entities' use of NICOR gas, not our residents?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, and does it just come down to like a rate volume type calculation? Is that basically how we're built today?
There are other issues also when it comes to use of right-of-way, and Mike, you can maybe elaborate, but it's it covers what a municipality would encounter with NICOR. So, for instance, when we have to have them come through and they have to use our right-of-way, how are they going to restore it, so forth. Right now, the agreement is from I would say the 50s or so, and it's about 4 pages. So it does have to be rewritten, yes.
But if we enter into this agreement, are we pretty assured that it won't be worse than we have today? It
Yes.
would only be better?
Yeah, financially, the
That's
financial
where I guess
offer
I'm
on
going.
rate and terms that is on the table is better than what you have today. You know, the issue is, and that's something you can accept today. The issue is there's 9 points that are in the memo that this other group of 30 communities, the consortium group, they got the benefits of this certain negotiation that unfortunately isn't being extended to anyone else. And we think that's a violation of the Public Utility Act. The Public Utility Act requires a utility like NICOR to not only offer rate in a non-discriminatory way, but provision of service in a non-discriminatory way. And I've had some extensive conversation with the NICOR folks, and I think they're seeing things from my perspective a little more than where they were, say, 6 months ago. And the fact that we're able to get, we have about 19 clients that we are clearly going to have part of this group. And we think we can get that up to about 30 to 40 clients in the next couple of months. And then we'll have leverage on our side to go back. The key provisions beyond just rate, and the rate that we're going to get, the beneficial rate will be offered to all municipalities. So there's a fairness in terms of rate that's being offered by NICOR. It's the other 9 items, which is term, performing restoration work within your right-of-way, consistent with your right-of-way ordinance. Seems like a no-brainer, but they won't put that in the draft that they're offering us. Notice of emergencies in a timely manner. Coordinating capital projects with us to dovetail into our projects and to be sensitive or at least considerate of our streets and infrastructure. The additional payments, that actually item number 5 is covered in their economic offer as it sits today. 6, right to conduct a limited audit of accounts and records. That's really actually consistent with the Freedom of Information Act that requires any entity that has a contract with a unit of local government to produce documents, especially one that's a municipal, a utility, a public utility. So, little things like that where they are saying no to us, but there are state law that really begs to differ on their position, doesn't make sense to us, and they already gave that provision, an audit provision, to the other consortium, so why not to us? A couple others, most favored nations, that's always the most easy one to think about. If they give a better deal to the next town over, they should give that to us as well, and that's called in contract negotiating on most favored nations. If you give it to one, you got to give it to all, and that's again a fairness issue. They're not willing to extend that to us at this time. But again, I think that will change. There's some insurance provisions that we'd like to see, we be named as an additional insured. Something happens when they're working in our town, and it results in a claim that could also, tie the village in, or bring the village into litigation. Their insurance ought to cover us. We ought to be an additional insured if they're working in our town on their own project, and that causes liability for us. And meeting with us on an annual basis, that seems like it would be an easy thing. Your other utilities have that in their franchise agreements. That would be, at a minimum, just a courtesy we think we could get, but we can't get that right now. So I think by going with what we call an alliance, we'll have some more leverage, we'll have a different perspective, and I think the cost savings to the participating members, our goal is to actually, again, to drive, just those 8 or 9 issues and focus on those, get it done in a cost-effective manner for all of our clients.
So you mentioned other utilities and alliances. Do we have something similar for ComEd? Or could we, or should we?
We do. ComEd's franchise agreement is a much more updated, a document that has many of the things that are absent from that we're looking for in the NICOR franchise agreement. ComEd's agreement already, it does have those provisions. So ComEd's agreement, when that comes due, some of those same things may be in play negotiating-wise, but many of those are already baked into the current agreement, so we don't even have to go there.
So I guess then my last question, and thank you for NICOR, if they're going to get less revenue from us, do we have any assurance that that they won't just pass on the loss and reduction in revenue to the residents via a higher rate?
They're stuck with their tariffs that they charge the residents, so I would not anticipate that to be an issue, because they have to deal with tariffs in terms of charging fees to the residents. And we're a small volume user for the most part in terms of natural gas.
Good question, though.
But their tariffs get reset annually, though?
I don't believe annually. I think there's a process for resetting tariffs, and it's driven by application or petition.
Okay. Thank you.
And with the other municipalities, are they also contemplating the same agreement as we are tonight? Is that underway with all of the 19 or plus others?
Yeah, the 19 that are Kleinthorpe and Jenkins clients, 6 of them have already approved them, and we have basically a handful went in May, a handful are going in June. Okay. We've got the rest of them teed up in July, so we're sort of rolling it out, and just based on meeting schedules.
Sure.
But yeah, we anticipate by the end of July to have all 19 clients.
That was my next
assuming they say yes, and we haven't had any no's yet, but and there's different partners that work with them that are rolling out my documents to them. So, my goal is by the end of July to have all 19 in place, and then to work with the COGs, West Central, South Suburban COG, DuPage, Will County. One of my partners is going to handle the Northwest Municipal Conference to try to bring in some additional clients to have additional leverage at the table.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions for Attorney Drusik?
Okay. And then one last issue to cover, and that's the Rosen Garden Water Project, which we've, I think, discussed a few times at the board level. Update for this evening is that we now have all of the residents who are impacted by this accounted for. The last one has checked in with Attorney Drusik. So there will be a revised draft ordinance to include the latest update there, and also a new reimbursement agreement drafted for us to review and approve here very shortly.
Yeah, and actually, the two reimbursement agreements that you approved at your last meeting, one was signed last week, the other one was dropped off today to me by Marty, so we have those two folks have signed, and then the third person called me over the weekend, so I didn't have time to, of course, get it on your agenda, but I'd like to move it forward at your next meeting. It's the same document you approved 2 weeks ago, and the ordinance that's in your packet, the only change is going to be one additional Garden Avenue address will be added.
And with this last resident now checking in, I think you had mentioned that it's all but 2 are going with the village option and the 2 are going with the private contractor, is that?
3 will go with the village's contractor, and the other
The way around.
12
Yep, I'm sorry. Yep,
will
yep.
go with the private contractor.
Okay. Got it. Okay. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Timick. So if no one objects, we'll put that on the omnibus as well. It's just a matter of tweaking it to adjust to this new situation. Okay. Moving on to planning and zoning. Trustee Terrell.
Yes, my report on Foxford Station, as you can see in your packet, the work that's been concluded includes concrete floors, exterior insulation, electric service, and other utility connections. The contractor is preparing, if we don't have any more rain, I imagine, to build the second, third, and fourth floor with the arrival of the steel early next week. A small portion of the commuter parking along Burlington Avenue, this is east of Wolf Road, will be closed from June 18th to June 22nd, so they can bring in one of those big cranes to lift the steel onto the project. It'll be placed in place for the construction of the second floor. The street will be reopened for traffic in the evening. There will probably be similar closures of the road later in the summer as we go on to the third and fourth floor. That'll be on the village website and the Facebook account. That's all I would have, Madam President.
Thank you, Trustee Terrell. Yeah, I noticed a very lovely yellow sheen to the south side, so I hope it doesn't stay that way too long.
So, just a quick question. So the parking spaces will be lost for the crane, but Burlington will be closed during the day for those same, that same date range, is that correct?
That's my understanding. Right, Marty? The street's going to be closed.
Yeah, the placement of the crane requires that area be kept clear of the cars that are there, so
Okay.
they'll be shifted down. There's ample parking to make up those spaces further down to the east.
But Burlington Avenue itself will be closed as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, to Johnson.
Yep. Okay.
It's one of those cranes. Do they have to drop a steel into the ground to keep the crane from?
No.
It can be on
It's
wheels?
smaller. It's smaller.
Okay.
It's smaller. It'll be moved off to the side in the evening. It's more mobile than the larger one.
Okay.
What will we be doing about traffic control, or rerouting traffic? Obviously, there won't be crossing guards because no school, but.
Right. And this was done once before, back in March, when they did some work, and Foxford provided traffic control and signage. So to make sure that anyone going north or south or trying to go east is well informed that there are traffic restrictions there. And thankfully, it's not a several block long detour. It's that block essentially. So they've got flagmen and signage out, and notices to the commuters that we've put out, some that they're going to put out, and some that we'll put in the train station. So.
And Bennex will still have access via Johnson then as well?
Correct.
Okay.
There's been a good line of communication there
Okay.
all along between the builders and Mike at Bennex.
Train platform?
Pardon?
Anything on the train platform? I mean, will it affect, will they close the train platform
No.
there?
No.
Chief Buds, would you consider doing anything in terms of putting an officer there for the first day or so? I mean, that's a pretty popular intersection, and people then ripping down Johnson to get around might be worthwhile to have an extra set of eyes there.
That's a great question and a great point, and yes, we do. We work attentively with Marty's department, and our parking officer, community service officer is going to be monitored area, if not parking there, but we'll be well aware of it, and we'll evaluate it hour by hour.
Okay.
And take the appropriate actions for enforcement.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Just one other question, and I think, Marty, you clarified it for me via email, but in the recent few weeks, there has been activity occurring at Foxford, correct? It's just not visible because it's more in the interior, right?
Right, that's a good question, Trustee Rudolph, I'm glad you asked it. There has been a lot of work on the interior, and then, as President Gallagher said, that lovely yellow sheen is actually exterior insulation that's required on there. So you'll see some of that come around to the front of the building and then get covered up by masonry work, which they've already started on a portion of it. So there's been some good progress inside the building, and it should go faster. I hate to make promises, but they were thinking that it'd be like 12 to 14 days for each floor to get the skeleton of it, if you will, up. So depending on a lot of different factors, like someone mentioned, weather, delivery of steel, which is the thing they've been waiting on from Missouri that comes up from the manufacturer, and other factors could slow it down a little bit. But typically, those types of projects we've looked at before with a good steel framework go pretty quickly. So hopefully.
So that'll be a lot of visible activity to the residents. They'll see it happening starting next week with the arrival of that steel.
Correct.
Nice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other business tonight?
I just had one question.
Sure.
Is there a chance we could get a quick platform update?
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
Oh.
yes, thank you. Trustee Rudolph had asked for that.
Okay.
I'm sure we're all getting some questions and comments regarding the platform. So Director Supert, if you don't mind giving us a quick update on the progress there.
Yeah, so you may have noticed that there was a lull period there for a couple of weeks on the platforms. My understanding is the issue mainly we were having was a coordination issue between one of the subcontractors and IDOT. IDOT was not on time with some of the payments, and the subcontractor was not willing to be on site until some of that invoicing was resolved. So that got resolved late last week, and Trine was one of the subcontractors. They were back on site, and we'll see work continue forward through this week. So we did lose about 2 weeks there with this coordination issue between IDOT and subcontractors.
Do we have a revised end date at this point?
Yeah, we're probably looking at end of June.
Okay.
Our original target date was mid-June.
And is that for the restoration of the parking, or everything is end of June?
That should be for full completion with the restoration of parking as well. I actually have a meeting tomorrow morning with the contractor, so I'm going to try and get an updated schedule.
Okay. I know concern has been expressed specifically about kind of the restaurants, and just the evening parking is looking pretty rough these days.
Unfortunately, that does have to happen at the end just because of the construction equipment that's out there. So they'll be bringing in concrete trucks and stuff and some masons to finish off the concrete pouring. So we don't want to have those trucks on the new pavement. So once that's all done and that cures, then we can finish off the asphalt paving on the Hill Road side.
I did notice there were a few spots open on the north side of Burlington. So they did reconfigure their equipment somehow.
Yeah, they're trying to open up spots as much as they can as they're in and out of there. You may see a few of those close back up because we're planning on resetting the clock tower here, or the clock on the south side probably in the next week or so, and that's part of our meeting we're going to be tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to my report. You may have noticed that the Butterfly Garden is open in Spring Rock Park, and want to thank the Park Board for donating the land for this lovely garden, and also Jack Hagan for his great idea. He had many volunteers, mostly the Field Park Cub Scout Pack, 65, I believe, and individual volunteers who will be receiving my thanks in the mail. But we would like to, or Jack Hagan asked me to convey that they are still looking for volunteers to help with the ongoing maintenance of the Butterfly Garden, and there are still some items to be completed, framing the garden, a monarch sign, other things. So if anyone is interested in volunteering to help complete the garden, please give us a call. That concludes my report. Village Manager Belke.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Tonight, I just wanted to point out that we have Pat Schramm here tonight with his sound crew. We are trying to adjust the sound system so that we can make sure that our residents at home can hear us well, as well as our residents who come here in the building. So, thank you, Pat, for everyone.
Yes, thank you.
And then also, I'd like to just say thank you to the Western Springs Business Association for a wonderful gathering on the green last Friday night. And I would also like to thank our village staff that was there that evening and all the departments. And I thought it was a wonderful turnout this year. Many more people. I think everyone enjoyed the Fire Association's food. And the rec department had their games for the kids with the large donuts that they kept on butting each other with. And then, and also our village stand was completely sold out of, not sold out, but we gave out all of the items, and I think the kids really enjoyed the duck game, so thank you.
Yeah, the weather really complied, you know, it was nice to see so many people at the event. Thanks for your time.
It was great to see all of the restaurants there too. It's
Yeah.
really,
Yes.
it's really impressive now, the
Mhm.
quantity, and they were all out. It was really great. So
Yeah.
thanks to everybody who worked the evening. It was really, really well done.
And the library was giving away free books
Oh.
Yes,
for the
Frankenstein.
summer reading program, yep.
Oh, very nice. Anything else? Thank you. Village Attorney Jerusik?
No further report tonight.
Thank you. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to recess to closed session.
I'll make a motion to recess to a closed session for the purpose of discussion of collective negotiating matters between the village and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, and pending litigation,
And the purchase of real estate.
and the purchase of real estate.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly, President Gallagher. Trustee Hansen?
Aye.
Trustee Timmick?
Aye.
Trustee Allen?
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph?
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman?
Aye.
Trustee Tyrrell?
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. We have now recessed to closed session. When we conclude our business, we will reopen this meeting only for the purpose of closing the meeting. We will not discuss anything else except the adjournment. So thank you and good evening, ladies and gentlemen.